What's going on, everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be taking Linux gaming to the next level. Now what I've got here is a build I put together about a week ago. I did a video on it. In that video we went over everything that's included with this setup here. But initially we installed Windows on it. And the main reason I set this up in such a configuration was really to run Linux, something like BAZZITE, to have more of a Steam Deck style interface. Just makes it really easy to set this up on a TV near the couch, got a couple wireless controllers attached, and that's really all we need to start gaming on something like this. Now you definitely don't need something with this much power, but this is the most powerful Linux PC that we've ever put together over here on the channel, and I wanted to show you what this thing could really do. Again, if you're interested in checking out that initial video, I'll leave a link in the description, but just a quick refresher, what we've got here is the AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D. In fact, this is the first X3D chip that I've owned, and I'm kind of glad that I waited here for the 9000 series because this thing is putting down some serious performance. To keep that thing cool, I've got a 240mm ID cooling AIO, 32 gigabytes of DDR5 at 7000 megahertz, Gamdius Atlas case. We do have that temperature readout on the bottom. It'll actually give us the GPU and CPU temps. And of course, when it comes to the GPU, I wanted something that would function properly in Linux and give me all those Steam Deck features in something like BAZZITE. So I opted for a Radeon card, and this is the RX 7900 XTX with 24 gigabytes of VRAM. It's the ASRock Tai Chi version, but I really wanted to put together the most powerful AMD-powered Linux machine that I could, and I think I've gotten real close with something like this. Getting right into it, as you can see, very reminiscent of the Steam Deck. It might look just a bit different because I do have CSS Loader installed, which allows us to install different themes. Now, I've got an Xbox controller connected, and if I press my Microsoft button at A, it's going to bring up our quick settings. We can also move down to our performance. And just to give you an idea here, CSS Loader, I can disable both of these, and it's going to go right back to looking like the stock Steam Deck. There's actually tons of themes you can download. Moving back into our performance settings, checking out the overlay, and with that 9800X3D, I mean, this thing is definitely clocking on up. With this operating system, I'm not held back by any kind of performance issues. This thing does clock up to 5.1, almost 5.2 on all of the cores if I'm kind of compiling shaders here. So for instance, this is a game I haven't started up yet. We'll just start it. If you take a look at our performance metrics over there, 5.15. I mean, all the way up. And these shaders compile super fast on this CPU. It's pretty amazing. I'm gonna bring this down just a bit so we can get a better look at everything. And real quick, let's head into our settings. From here, I can show you exactly what we've got. System, move down. AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D, up to 5.269 gigahertz, 8 cores, 16 threads. I've got 32 gigs of DDR5 running at up to 7000 in this system. And of course, we've got that AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX with 24 gigs of VRAM. Little overkill, but I wanted to go all AMD with this system when I built it specifically for an operating system like this. And I've been doing some testing so far. I mean, this will run anything that I've thrown at it. With the specs here, obviously it's a very powerful system. And there was one more thing I wanted to show you. I actually forgot about this. From performance, frame limiter is off. We can enable variable refresh rate. I don't need to allow tearing or half rate shading on this card or anything. But if we move down to our TDP limit, you can see it will allow us to go up to 339 watts. Now, I've just left it at auto because, I mean, that's definitely quite high for the 9800X3D. I don't think it'll hit that, but the way it's working right now out of the box without any kind of tweaking is absolutely amazing. So I'm going to let it be just like that. And when it comes to BAZZITE, I mean, it's not just a gaming operating system. We have a full-fledged desktop also. From our power settings, we can go to switch to desktop. And we've got a full-blown Linux computer here. This is great because if you want to get any work done or anything like that, you can definitely do it from here. If you've never used Linux before, it's really not an issue because it's set up just like it would be with basically any other operating system. Down here, we've got our app panel. And the first boot into the desktop, it's going to give us the BAZZITE portal. And this is really nice because from here, we can actually set up different applications to automatically install, like EMU Deck. If you want to get CSS Loader installed or basically any other plugin, you can do it from here. Vip-Urcdkey loader for emulation. You can pick and choose what you want here. We can install it. Once that's done, it'll bring us over to the application installer. Lots of great stuff from here. BIOS firmware updates on some devices. Now, I don't think it's going to work on this ASRock board here, but I have seen it working with like the Legion Go, and I've already installed all of this. But yeah, super easy to navigate. We've got Discover just like we would on the Steam Deck. So if you wanted to go through, pick and choose different applications by yourself, you could do it, or you can do it all from terminal. It's really up to you. And from games, if you wanted to go with these standalone emulators right here, got a lot to choose from. But while downloading the BAZZITE installer, it'll actually give you the option to go directly into gaming mode, and every time you boot it up, it'll go there. But if you ever come back to desktop and you need to get back, right here, return to gaming mode, it'll bring us right back over there. And once we're back here, we can get right into some gaming, and the first one I'm going to go with here is going to be God of War Ragnarok. I want to show you how well this performs. It's pretty awesome what we can do here. And right now I'm on a 1440p monitor, but let's say you wanted to run something at a lower resolution and it's just not showing up in the game settings. From each game, we've got this settings icon. If we go to our properties, general, game resolution, we can set it from here. With the newer releases of BAZZITE, it's really good about picking the correct resolution, but if for some reason you need to go down or up, you could do it manually. But now, it's time to see how this thing performs. So with every game we're going to be testing in this video, they're going to be maxed out as far as we can take it, minus some ray tracing with a few, because when it comes to these AMD cards, you know, ray tracing can kind of fall on its face. We're not going to be using any frame gen. We're not going to be using any FSR. I want to see what this thing can do at that native 1440p resolution. And so far, from what I've tested, we're seeing some awesome performance here. God of War Ragnarok 1440p, ultra settings, looking at an average of around 137 FPS. Here's one I absolutely love, and I will admit I never played this on PlayStation 4, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, because when it was ported over to PC, I mean, we saw some great performance in a lot of different systems. Right now we're at 1440p, very high. Love having it at this resolution or even a bit higher, and with most of this stuff on that 7900 XTX, yeah, we could definitely go up to 4K. But personally, most of the monitors that I have are 1440 up to 144 Hertz, and that's more than enough for me. Something like this at 1440 does look absolutely amazing. Here's Black Myth Wukong 1440 very high. But one thing to keep in mind is there's a setting over very high. It's actually known as cinematic. And on this system here, we only averaged 68 FPS, and there was a few cases I did see it dip under 60. It's definitely a harder one to run, totally maxed out with those cinematic settings. And even at very high with no FSR on this 7900 XTX paired up with that 9800 X3D, we're only seeing an average of around 71 FPS with this game. Ratchet & Clank, Rift Apart, 1440, very high. Believe it or not, this is a harder one to run on lower end systems, so I always like throwing it in. But for something like this rig here, it's really not an issue. I'm seeing an average of around 152 FPS. Cyberpunk 2077 1440p Ultra, and when you go to Ultra it will turn FSR on. I've disabled it just to make sure because I wanted that true 1440p with no scaling whatsoever. This is one of those games that does perform really well on the 7900 XTX, but once you enable ray tracing you will need a little bit of scaling if you're not using an NVIDIA card. And with BAZZITE, I mean, to get all of those Steam Deck features, we did need AMD, and that's the reason I used this card. Horizon Zero Dawn remastered at 1440p, very high, seeing an average of 138 FPS, and I figured it might be a little more here. And with the remastered version, it's definitely on par with Forbidden West graphics, but I do think the developers need to go through this one with a few more optimizations.
I wonder if I can get in there without alerting all those soldiers.
And finally here, Elden Ring 1440p max. Really didn't have a doubt it wouldn't run it, and I know for a fact that this will run at 4K max. This is one of those games that locks itself at 60, and I'm sure there are ways around this, but I've never really looked into it because I still have a lot of fun playing it at 60. So going into this setup with BAZZITE, I knew we'd see some great performance. This is the first time I'm using an X3D chip with Linux, and performance here is looking great. I mean, I'm not seeing a performance degradation from Windows over here when it comes to the CPU side of things. Now, on the GPU side, it is a bit of a different story. There are a few games here that I definitely got much better performance in Windows with. For instance, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered. Over in Windows, I'm getting about a 25 FPS increase at the same settings, but playing the game through over 100 FPS at 1440 is more than enough. And having this whole setup here, really nice for the couch, all you need is a controller to navigate the whole operating system, is something I was really shooting for. And yeah, I do think that this worked out really, really well. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you're interested in putting anything like this together, I'll leave links to everything in the description. If you want to try BAZZITE on a machine you already have, link for that is down below. Super easy to install. Basically, all you're going to need is a USB drive and an internet connection. And if there's anything else you want to see running on this machine, just let me know in the comments below. Like always, thanks for watching.